Exposed. As a haunted officer in rural Canada, I discovered sinister rules for survival. Officer James Reed took a deep breath, the cool autumn wind slicing through the quiet town like a whisper of warning. He had traded the chaos of city streets for this serene landscape, eager to patch the fractures in his family. He thought moving here, nestled near the U.S. border, would be a simple fix. But behind the picturesque scenes, the community felt wrong. The hushed conversations about folklore and curses had a chill that settled deep in his bones. He felt it, the creeping unease, the kind that sends shivers down your spine, warning you to turn back. That evening, a call shattered his fragile calm. A child was missing. Panic surged through him as he grabbed his coat, muscles tensed for the frantic search ahead. The parents were frantic, faces pale and tear-streaked. Each second felt like hours as James rallied a handful of townsfolk to comb the woods. A child's laughter, once comforting, twisted into a haunting echo in the growing darkness. As they ventured deeper into the foliage, the silence felt heavy, unnatural. It was wrong, so wrong. Then he saw its symbols crudely etched into the gnarled bark of the trees, shapes that pulsed with an ancient malevolence. "What are those?" he asked a local, but received only a mournful glance. "Just, stay away from the woods," came the warning, an instinctive plea harbored through generations. He brushed it off, convinced they were just myths. But as the night deepened, darkness swallowed the path back. "Stay close," he yelled, fear creeping into his voice as the older man next to him fell silent, eyes wide in terror, sensing something he couldn't see. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks. James and his family tried to fit in, participating in neighborhood gatherings under twinkling lights, but the townsfolk were always just a step back. The little pieces of joy they molded together felt bitter, a facade overlaying buried dread. One night, while playing hide-and-seek, his son vanished into the woods, squeals of delight fading into silence. "Ben," he shouted, every heartbeat echoing in the eerie stillness that wrapped around him. Then he heard a low growl. Panic seized him. The sound didn't belong to anything familiar, it wasn't a bear or the sound of rustling branches. This was different. Terrifying. He rushed back to town, breathless, but the locals didn't help. They exchanged glances laced with fear, warning him with nothing more than whispered rules. "Don't disturb things that aren't meant to be disturbed. We all have secrets." He didn't understand, it felt like betrayal lay everywhere. The very people who could help him were hiding something deep beneath the surface. Then tragedy struck. A prominent community figure went missing. Chaos erupted. Whispers traveled like wildfire, panic flowing among the community. In the depths of night, as the snow began to fall, James felt the web of darkness closing in around him, wrapping around his family like a chokehold. Moments before dawn, the unnatural silence in the woods pulled at him, a force practically dragging him into the heart of the shadows. He stumbled upon a hidden site, draped in dread, a whispering echo of rituals long erased from history. His mind raced, this wasn't folklore. This was real, and it was happening. Then the air split open with a blood-curdling scream. His son. The shadows seemed to breathe, alive with malice, and terror clawed at his sanity. James found himself spiraling deeper into a nightmare. Pillars of darkness surrounding not just the town, but every choice he'd made. Could he unravel the sinister threads before they pulled him into their depths? The answer loomed, with his son's voice echoing through the woods, fueling a race against time. The scream cut through the silence like a shattered glass, sharp and agonizing. It froze James in place. For a heartbeat, he battled the instinct to flee. But he wouldn't. His son was out there, and beneath the weight of dread, a flicker of adrenaline surged through him, galvanizing each trembling muscle. "Ben!" He yelled again, voice hoarse, desperation clawing at his throat. The echo bounced emptily off the ancient trees, mocking him. He stepped into the suffocating blackness surrounding him, branches clawing at his jacket like skeletal fingers, pulling him deeper into the nightmare. The ground beneath his feet was uneven, roots snaking up to trip him as he stumbled forward. He had to find him. He had to ignore the gnawing whispers of danger that curled in the back of his mind. Each footfall seemed to invite the shadows closer, as if the very woods were alive, hungry to consume him. Then, a flicker in the dark, a light. Hope surged through him before it twisted into something more sinister. Was that the flicker of a lantern? Or a trapped animal-esque glow, weaving through the murky depths of despair? He pressed on, his heartbeat echoing in his ears, drowning out the rustling leaves that carried secrets he didn't want to know. The light danced ahead through the tangled understanding, and he burst through the underbrush into a clearing. There it was, a small fire flickering in the choking silence, but no child. Only the remnants, blackened logs encircling the ash-strewn ground, like a macabre invitation to join a dark ritual. A gut intuition whispered that something was terribly wrong. "Ben!" Panic lapped at the edges of his reason as shadows flickered and murmured, weaving around him. He felt hot breath on his neck. Cold sweat trickled down his back. He turned abruptly, but nothing was there. Then came the low chuckle, threading through the trees like a serpent's hiss. It wasn't laughter, it was a taunt. Chilling. He felt eyes on him, unseen figures lurked just beyond the thin veil of darkness. They watched. They waited. "Leave him alone!" James shouted, rage pounding through him. His heart raced, a ferocious beast trying to break its cage. But he was alone. Even if he wasn't, who would he call for? The townsfolk had already drawn their lines. "Help! Somebody help me!" His voice cracked, desperation bleeding through. A rustling sound pulled his attention left, and there beneath a gnarled tree, he saw a patch of vibrant fabric. The distinct blue of his son's jacket. Time twisted, stretching like a taut string ready to snap. He bolted, lunging toward the hint of hope, but as he closed the distance, something wrapped around his ankle like iron chains, dragging him down. He crashed into the cold, damp earth, gasping. Panic screeched through him, primal and unyielding. "Stop!" His voice broke, but the sound rolled down the hill, swallowed by the ever-thickening night. Shadows writhed at the edge of his vision, figures materializing in the corners of his mind. They whispered terrible secrets of the woods, bloodied promises and malevolent intentions. Had he disturbed the peace? Was he paying for trespasses that were never his? In the dim light, he caught a glimpse of something, a figure wreathed in darkness, towering above him, its eyes gleaming with a hunger that sickened him. A low growl erupted from its throat, reverberating through his bones. "Your son is a deeper sacrifice," it rasped, and fear jolted through James, sending icy daggers straight into his heart. One thought overrode the terror: he had to get to Ben. But could he? The woods seemed to conspire against him. The wind whispered a warning he couldn't ignore. As James struggled against the unseen forces around him, the sound of children's laughter echoed through the trees, sweet and chilling. And with it, a dread realization struck him cold. What if this was all orchestrated? What if the locals knew far more than they let on? With a final desperate effort, James clutched the familiar fabric in his hand. He would fight back. He would save his son. But in that moment, the woods seemed to tighten around him. An unseen hand grasped his shoulder, pulling him away from the truth. As darkness closed in, one last question blasted through his mind: was he too late? The shadows whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." James thrashed, fighting against the grip that tightened around him like a vice. The cold earth pressed against his back as he struggled, desperation rippling through him. He grabbed at the ground, fingers clawing through the moist dirt, drawing up muck as he pulled himself toward the blue jacket, still clutched in his trembling hand. "What do you want?" he roared, voice quavering. But the only answer was a sudden hush, the kind that fills your ears with a deafening silence. The figure above him leaned closer, obscured by shadow, yet its eyes gleamed, predatory and intent. Such insolence it purred, each word dripped with malice. It stepped back slightly, allowing the darkness of the trees to encircle James like a noose, emphasizing how alone he truly was. You are not meant to disrupt the balance, not here. A pulse of anger surged within him. I'm not leaving without my son. His scream sliced through the silence, echoing into the distance before being devoured by the forest. Suddenly, the wind shifted sharply, howling like a wounded creature. The air swirled, and whispers erupted from everywhere. Voices muddled together, children giggling, laughter echoing, melded with what sounded like growls and sobs. Each layer of sound layered over the next until it became a cacophony, invading his mind, feeding his dread with every syllable. Then, the grip around his ankle slackened, and James seized the opportunity. He scrambled forward, pulling himself close to the fabric that had ignited all his hopes. But before he could fully grasp it, the cold presence was back, this time kneeling beside him. It whispered right into his ear, a breath of cold air. Continue if you wish, but no light brings sacrifice. His heart raced as he suddenly felt something heavy above him, like a weight, as if the trees themselves were leaning closer, eavesdropping on the encounter. Was it his imagination, or did the shadows really whisper and hiss, entwining with the laughter of the unseen children? James could see nothing but darkness, but he felt its hunger, deeper than the shadows itself. Panic clawed at his throat. Leave me alone. He gasped, trying to push himself up, but his body betrayed him. His limbs felt like lead. With a sudden push, he managed to sit upright, squinting into the void, surveying the area for one glimpse of hope. A part of him thought of fleeing, of abandoning this cursed place, but then he heard it again, the laughter, joyous yet twisted. Ben! With renewed vigor, he called out again, his voice raw, fear and anger merging. I will find you. Something shifted in the shadow before him, and for a brief, terrifying moment, he glimpsed a childlike figure dancing near the edge of the clearing. His heart soared, hope flaring briefly before being snuffed out as the figure twisted into a haunting wail, transforming before his eyes into something grotesque and slathering. Your son is ours, it screeched, a discordant harmony that mingled with the laughter. James knew he had to choose but was far too afraid to move. If he faced the darkness, it might consume him, but if he turned away, what would happen to Ben? The decisions loomed over him like looming shadows, twisting reality into an unbearable choice. Please, he croaked, desperation tinging the plea. What do you want from me? The figure leaned closer, the gleam in its eye like a sinister star. To learn the truth is to pay the price. Are you willing to bind your soul to find your son? James felt another shiver, a bone-deep chill as he weighed his options. What kind of price? What kinds of truths had been hidden here? The darkness seemed to breathe around him, filling the air with the heady scent of decay, and a flicker of thought struck him. What if uncovering the truth was the only way out? But at what cost? And somewhere in the distance, a child's voice wailed in pain, sending waves of ice through him once more. Will you exchange your silence for his salvation or surrender both? The wood seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his answer, each heartbeat like a clock ticking down to something terrible. James felt the air thicken, the oppressive weight of the forest pressing in on him as uncertainty consumed him. What do I need to do? He croaked, words barely cutting through the murky fog of dread enveloping him. The figure's smile widened, a grotesque display of too many teeth. You will find what is lost by willingly sacrificing what you hold dear. The light cannot break without darkness. It paused, letting the words hang in the air heavy with promise and threat. James stared back, his thoughts tangled as he felt the darkness pulse with life, enticing and terrifying. Every second felt like a year. He knew he couldn't turn back now. There was no choice. He would willingly face the abyss if it meant saving Ben. I'll do it, he whispered, feeling small and fragile, a moth drawn to an ominous flame. The shadow leaned closer still, almost intimate now. Your heart will guide, but fear will bind. Are you prepared for the truth? I just want my son. The desperation in his voice surged, raw and unforgiving. Whatever it takes. Then listen, the figure's voice became a chilling lullaby, the shadows swirling closer. Stand at the edge of that tree, a place where roots twist and darkness clings. Speak his name 3 times, and the darkness shall unravel. James shuddered, but determination fought against his fear. He turned, setting his sights on the ancient oak that towered on the edge of the clearing, gnarled and sinister. The wind howled again, but it sounded like a warning, tearing at his resolve. Still, he pushed himself to his feet, each step heavier than the last, as if the very earth was trying to pull him down. As he approached the tree, twisted branches clawed at him like skeletal fingers. The laughter of children danced around him, a soft and mocking melody that sent chills racing down his spine. With each heartbeat, he neared the trunk, a gaping hollow where shadows writhed hungrily, waiting. Ben! He called into the void, forcing the name from his throat, a desperate plea to embrace the darkness. Ben! Nothing. Only the trees creaked in response, an eerie chorus that echoed through the night. Ben, Ben! He shouted again, anger propelling him upward, his throat raw and aching. A pause, then the shadows shimmered, stirring like smoke in the wind, almost alive as a haunting wail bubbled from the hollow. James stepped closer, curiosity clashing with fear. The wailing subsided, replaced by a single, familiar call that echoed through the shadows, a voice that twisted his heart. Daddy Ben! He lunged toward the tree, reaching out, but the darkness clawed at him, pulling him back with icy fingers. He felt the terrified reality of being consumed, swallowed whole by the place that thrived on despair. No! Frantic energy coursing through him, James fought against the pull, determined to grasp whatever flicker remained of his son. I will save you. The figure from before emerged, now a haze of shadows surrounding the oak, blocking his view. It leaned in, a whisper riding the wind, you tread dangerously. Do you not see? This is a game one you might not survive. Desperation surged once more, anger turned to fierce resolve. I don't care. I'll risk it all. Very well, it hissed, a contented tone threading through the threat. But know this, a sacrifice is not without its scars. With that, the ground rumbled beneath him, the earth shifting in possibility. Darkness spilled forth, taking shape, twisting up to form a monstrous, shadowy figure, the embodiment of everything James had tried to flee from. The laughter grew louder, swirling in a diabolical rhythm, as the figure watched him with eyes that glimmered with malice. Will you spill blood for his name, or lose more than you can fathom in your pursuit? James's pulse raced, caught between dread and desperation. He could barely breathe as the world spun around him, the figure looming larger in his vision. Faced with the unknown choice, and the desperate cries of his son echoing through the expanse, he knew this was just the beginning. He had to be ready. The darkness was welcoming him in, and he had to decide where his courage would take him next. James's heart thudded against his ribcage as he stood frozen, the monstrous figure before him threatening every instinct to flee. The bet was placed, the stakes impossibly high. I'll do whatever it takes. I refuse to let you take him. The shadow swirled, thickening as it seemed to savor his desperate bravado. Ah, brave father. Think carefully. For every choice you make now, the price may be greater than you wish to pay. Blood demands blood and fear demands its due. As the creature took a step closer, James's breath quickened, the chill in the air wrapping around him like a vice. What blood? He stammered, his voice shaky but defiant. The faintest hopeful glimmer pushed through his dread. I won't let fear own me. I'll face it. With that, the figure began to retract, its towering form folding into itself like a dark bloom closing at night. The laughter around him morphed into mocking whispers, slithering like vipers through the air. Very well, speak his name. Show me your devotion, and a path shall reveal itself. But be warned, child of light, what you love may not remain unchanged. Ben! James shouted, forcing his voice to boom over the fading laughter. Ben! Ben! The air stirred, a fog swirling around him, crackling with energy. Shadows danced, rising like wraiths from the ground, twisting in rhythm with the heartbeat of the forest. A rustling from the hollow bark of the tree pulled his focus back. Each pulse of sound felt too real, a chilling reminder of why he was here. Daddy! The cry rang out again, piercing through the layers of darkness. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. It was his son's voice, fearful yet unwavering. Ben! James lunged forward, tearing himself away from the grip of dread. The roots of the ancient oak writhed, forming an unyielding barrier, but he pushed against it, feeling the sharp sting of splinters dig into his palm. I'm coming for you. Sudden calm enveloped him, the forest holding its breath. In the hushed silence, the figure resumed its place, eyes gleaming like shards of glass. You want him back? Prepare yourself. The truth is not merely a door, it is a storm. James's resolve hardened, a fire igniting within him. I don't care. I'll face the storm. Just tell me what to do. An offering, the figure whispered, voice like rustling leaves. A piece of what you hold dear. Only then will his light be revealed. But be warned, the shadow hungers. James recoiled at the thought. You want me to hurt myself? To give willingly. The figure grinned, a predator's smile devoid of warmth. The forest demands its sacrifice, will you feed its hunger? His heart raced as he glanced around, the darkness coiling tighter, waiting, biding its time. The thought of Ben, lost and fearful, surged through him. James gritted his teeth, forcing his shaking hands to still. Love and fear warred within him, and he felt the terrible weight of the choice he faced. Take what you must. He shouted, voice trembling with resolve. I will not lose him. A shudder rippled through the ground, and the laughter returned, veiled in anticipation. The forest seemed to move around him, ready to claim what it desired. Shadows leaned in, wrapping around him like a shroud. But just before James could make a move, a shriek sliced through the air, sharp and shrill, an echoing cry. Not from him but from deep within the tree. The heart of the forest had awakened. The laughter turned sinister, the shadows tightened their grip as a chill swept through him. What had he unleashed? Your choice will unravel more than you can imagine, the figure hissed, its eyes glowing brighter. James wavered, caught in a snare of terror and despair. He had made his choice, but in the depths of the darkness, would it be enough to save his son? The shadows around him swirled, a tempest of unseen beasts waiting to feed. And with the looming threat of revelation hanging heavy in the air, a new fear settled deep in his bones. Would saving Ben come at the cost of his very soul? James's pulse raced, a wild drumbeat that echoed through the oppressive silence of the forest. As the shadows pulsed, his mind raced with the implications of the figure's ominous words. The air thickened, blacker than the night itself, and the laughter turned to something near a snarl. Feed the hunger, he mumbled, eyes darting toward the dark embrace of the tree. A sickening weight settled in his gut. What could he possibly give that wouldn't cost him everything? Ben! He cried again, desperation coloring his voice. The shadows flickered, twisting and writhing like snakes as they awaited their offering. It struck James how hungry they seemed, like a pack of wolves starved for too long. Ben! A wave of panic surged through him as he thought of his son's terrified face, eyes wide with dread. I'll do anything. The figure smiled wider, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too jagged. Anything except, perhaps, the one true sacrifice that will quench their thirst. What's that supposed to mean? James half yelled, stepping closer to the shadowy figure, emboldened by the thought of his son. I'd do anything for my boy. Your love is admirable, but blinded by your trust, the figure whispered, its face shrouded in shadow. Do you not comprehend? The forest craves what you hold deepest in your heart. It demands a true exchange. Just then, a low rumble reverberated through the earth, a growl from the depths of the earth that sent shivers racing up James's spine. The boundaries of the forest whispered, each slither of wind feeling like a warning. I have to know. The figure interjected, raising a talon-like finger. Do not rush. This is not a matter of fleeting desires, but of the very essence of you. Shaking, James dropped to his knees, heart racing as if trying to escape his chest. The ground was soft beneath him, the leaves damp and cloying with moisture. You mean I have to give you my soul? Not merely your soul, brave father. But the part of you that dares to love at all. The forest moaned, urging him to make a decision. His hands trembled at his sides. He could feel the shadows inching closer, greedy tendrils reaching for him, yearning to take. The thought of Ben, of his sweet laugh and fearless spirit, pierced through the darkness like a candle in the abyss. I can't. I want tea. He shouted. For a second, the hold of the shadows faltered, but only for a heartbeat. They surged forward, the shadows closing in, and the laughter rose like a wave, crashing over him, filling his ears with chaos. You cannot save him without sacrificing that which you hold most dear. It was almost a chant now, the forest breathing around him, filled with a hunger that threatened to consume him whole. James's head spun, terror clawing at his throat. What if the unimaginable sacrifice was only a heartbeat away? What if he lost his very essence trying to save his son? Daddy! Ben's voice echoed again, raw and desperate. Ben! James yelled, willing his voice to reach his child, his fear igniting into something fierce. I'm coming. Just hold on. But the shadows laughed, a sound thick with malice. They were a collective pulse of darkness, alive and ravenous. They wanted the pain, the fear, the love. They wanted him to bleed. He could feel the forest shifting, the ground trembling beneath him. Tell me what you want. He screamed into the dark. Only that which is most precious. It was a whisper now, a hiss that wound around his heart like a noose. As darkness enveloped him, he had only one thought: he had to act. Yet as he stood frozen, a flicker of light broke through the trees, ethereal and delicate. A ghostly figure shimmered, and James's breath caught in his throat. Could it be? The spectre held Ben's likeness, but there was something wrong. It flickered like a dying flame in the wind. Daddy, help me. Panic surged. What was it? Was it a trick of the forest? Or was it the truth he had never dared to confront? His choice loomed larger than before, and James felt the shadows tightening their grip once more. They would take him if he faltered, but if he lunged toward the light, would he reach Ben or plunge into a new abyss? The shadows whispered again, pulling him back into their depths. Will you feed their hunger? James fought to breathe, his fate spiraling out of control. Could he pull Ben back from the darkness, or would he lose everything in the attempt? As he extended his arm toward the flickering figure of hope, an icy tendril wrapped around his ankle, holding him still, waiting for his choice. James's heart thudded against his ribcage like a trapped bird, desperate to escape the tightening grip of fear. The shimmering figure that bore a haunting resemblance to Ben flickered, its form hazy and unstable, like a candle struggling against a fierce draft. Each heartbeat echoed in the utter darkness, and his breath felt colder and heavier with every passing moment. Daddy! The urgency in that soft voice shattered him, pushing him to act, but the shadows were insistent, wresting his will. They coiled around his legs, a chilling reminder of what lay at stake. He could feel their cold, clammy embrace, dragging him deeper toward despair. Ben! He shouted again, his voice raw and frayed. Just hold on, I'm coming. He knew he had to choose, and quickly. The flicker of hope in front of him swayed like a branch caught in a storm. What do I do? He screamed into the swirling darkness, his words swallowed by the forest's hungry whispers. The shadows lunged, pulsing forward, their laughter like a dark symphony, mocking his desperation. You must feed them, feed the hunger, they hissed, voices intertwining, a chorus of agony and despair. His mind raced. What do you want? Just tell me. Only what is most precious, the figure echoed, its voice a low, seductive purr that sent a shiver cascading down his spine. What was precious? His mind raced to memories, laughter, weekend camping trips, sunsets shared with Ben. But the question was insistent, demanding a sacrifice he couldn't comprehend. Your sacrifice, your love, it taunted. James's hands trembled, trying to pull free from the grasping shadows. He shook his head. Not my love, not that. What they sought was too deeply entwined in his very essence. The phantom flickered and twisted, forms reforming in an agonizing dance. Help me, Daddy. Ben's voice rang out again, a plea tinged with terror. But was it truly Ben? Or the forest, using his son's likeness to ensnare him further? The ground beneath him writhed, and shadows pulsed, hungry tendrils now clawing at his skin, sucking at his will. He could feel it, his fear and love becoming fuel for their insatiable hunger. An overwhelming urge to flee gripped him, but he couldn't abandon this opportunity, this glimmering hope. Suddenly, Ben's face flickered into focus again, and James gasped. It was more than a resemblance, it was his son's spirit trying to break free. Daddy, please. Fueled by adrenaline and desperation, James lunged towards the light, the cold grasp of shadows snapping around him, trying to pull him back. But he thrust his hand forward, a primal instinct overriding the horror surrounding him. But amidst the chaos, his connection with Ben felt like a taut thread, stretched to the point of snapping. You have to let him go. The dark figure shrieked from the depths, shrill and unforgiving. Shadows churned violently, now transforming into monstrous shapes, their eyes glowing with ravenous intent. James felt a rush of despair as he grappled with the horrors unleashed around him. No. I will not lose him. He screamed. With a rush of strength, he tore himself away from the shadow's hold and reached for the flickering ghost. Ben. I'm coming. But as his hand reached toward the brightness, a dark vortex swirled around them, threatening to engulf them both. The laughter roared back, drowning out his son's pleas, and James felt himself teetering on the brink of oblivion. Was he beckoning salvation or reckoning? Just at that moment, the light pulsated brighter, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. Daddy, it whispered again, a cry that cut through the madness. James gritted his teeth, filled with a desperate resolve. The shadows shrieked, withdrawing momentarily as if recoiling from the light. But the flicker of hope felt fragile, like glass pressed underfoot. The choice loomed before him once more, a tremor of uncertainty racing through his limbs. Would he step forward, risking it all, or fall back into the abyss? As the darkness surged again, swallowing the last remnants of light, and unseen hands grasped at his body, his decision hung heavy in the air, waiting to tumble into chaos. Would he face the shadows head-on or let everything slip away? In that instant of stillness, with hope and despair battling for supremacy, a haunting question resonated within him: what truly lay on the other side of sacrifice? James's heart raced. With every breath, the darkness pressed closer, suffocating him in its cold embrace. He could still see that flickering light, a beacon amidst encroaching despair. His hand, trembling violently, hovered just above the space where Sam would be waiting if he could only plunge into the brightness. What do I do? He clawed for clarity, desperation ripping at him. Feed the hunger, the shadows cackled, their voices blending into a cacophony that gnawed at his sanity. He felt the ground tremble beneath him, pulsating like a beast eager to swallow him whole. Sacrifice, sacrifice, they chanted, the words drumming into his ears like a funeral dirge. Shut up. His voice broke into a furious yell. He had to do something. Anything. But the shadows were relentless. They stretched out, slithering like serpents, probing his thoughts, twisting them until he could barely think straight. Memories of Ben flashed before him, his son's laughter, the warmth of his small hand in his own, those quiet moments that had once felt eternal. Daddy. The voice was louder now, more urgent, but mixed with an undertone of anguish that twisted his gut. A sudden burst of panic surged through him. He swung around, scanning the darkness for an escape that wasn't there. I have to find him. I want to let you take him. Tears streamed down his face, hot and stinging. Then you know what must be done, hissed the figures. They surged forward, the shadows morphing into horrific shapes, each more grotesque than the last, a parade of nightmares woven from every shred of his fear. He staggered backward, feeling the ground quake and pulse underfoot, as if it were alive and feeding on his terror. But there, faint yet tangible, was the light. Ben! He shouted, summoning every ounce of strength within him. Just hold on. As if in response, the light shimmered, illuminating a path through the dark. James felt a sudden bolting energy ignite within him. Drawing on every ounce of love, he charged towards the brightness, each step tearing away at the bindings of despair around his heart. But the shadows roared, a thunderous wave rushing to engulf him. No! He gasped. I won't give in. The pull of darkness was deafening, a final attempt to drag him under. A scream erupted from the depths of the abyss, a sound not entirely human. Daddy! Help me! It echoed, mingled with the laughter of the shadows, a mixture that sliced through his heart. With one last surge of determination, he leaped toward the light, longing and fear intertwining in a tight knot within him. As he broke through the veil, a fierce energy surged around him, an ancient force that pulsed with life and light, yet felt both foreign and familiar. The world spun as the dark tried to reclaim him, thickening around him like smoke. Ben! Where are you? He cried, his voice engulfed in desperation and defiance. In that moment, he felt the shadows shrieking around him, but through the cacophony, an image began to form just beyond the glowing light. A flicker of movement. A face, his son's face, radiant yet fading. James! Please. The light began to dim, flickering rapidly as the shadows writhed and recoiled, not ready to let go of their prize. Without thinking, he lunged again, reaching into the light with everything he had, heart racing, blood pounding. Ben! A shocking jolt coursed through him as contact was made, warm and electric, but an unseen force yanked him back. You will pay the price. The shadows hissed, their chorus now sinister and mocking. The brightness fluttered like a tattered flag in a storm, and James felt a new kind of fear coil around him, a deep-seated dread that his urging might not be enough. How much will you risk, James? The question curled like smoke in his mind, wrapping around his thoughts, dragging up the primal fear of loss and the unknowable weight of what he was willing to sacrifice. The shadows surged again, more relentless than ever, and he knew it wasn't just Ben's soul at stake. It was his. Above the chaos, another voice broke through the fray, the final moment arrived. But which moment? Would he face the darkness in pursuit of the light, or would he lose them both forever? James gasped as he felt the darkness begin to envelop him again. It gripped tighter, pulling him down, almost savoring his fear. He strained against the shadows, trying to break free, but the weight of despair was crushing. Every heartbeat echoed painfully in his ears, a reminder that time was fleeting, and he had to act fast. James! A whisper cut through the chaos. It was softer than a breath, laced with desperation. Ben! He strained, looking into the fading light, praying it wasn't just an echo of the past. No! The shadows screeched, a ferocious cacophony rising around him. You cannot save him. You will lose everything. The figures elongated, reaching out with clawed hands, their fingers sharp as blades, slicing through his confidence. He staggered as they clawed at his mind, images of what could happen flooding his thoughts. What if he jumped back into that light, into that warmth, and it took him to a false hope? What if he lost Ben for good? The reality pierced him like a knife, he had lost so much already. Trust me. Ben's voice rang louder, crystalline amidst the squawking terror. It snapped him back, forcing him to focus. He couldn't drown in doubt, not this time. Hold on, buddy. I'm coming. With every ounce of strength, he wrenched himself from the shadow's grip and moved toward the flickering warmth. Each step dragged against the sticky darkness, but he felt a burning resolve spark within him. No. The shadows shrieked, their voices twisting in agony. The pressure intensified as they pushed against him, pressing him down to the ground like a heavy weight of despair. You will sacrifice him or you. No. The word burst from his lips, angry and defiant. He reached out again, stretching further into the light, feeling its warmth enveloping him, pulling at his fear. I want to let you win. I choose love, not fear. With that, he plunged forward, eyes wide, heart pounding. As he broke away from the shadow's hold, the light erupted. It radiated with force, scattering the dark like dust in the wind. He felt freedom wash over him, the warm glow ignited his spirit. And then he saw Ben. There he was, reaching out, his small frame suspended between worlds, glowing like an angel caught in a storm. The darkness behind him twisted and churned, but James could see his son clearly, his features bright and hopeful against the shadow's menace. Dad! Ben's voice was crisp, filled with every ounce of hope and trust. Ben, I'm here. James pushed himself through the rift. He could almost touch him, could nearly grasp his son's hand, and then another chill swept through. It licked at his ankles, reminding him of what he could still lose. The light flickered like a dying star, and the shadows were clawing back. You think this is yours, James? This moment? It is a lie. They shrieked, morphing into grotesque faces of his past, twisted mockeries of love. No. He screamed, defiance surging through his veins. I want to let you take him. Not today. With a ferocious resolve, he lunged one last time, desperately reaching toward Ben, willing the light to grow brighter, to swallow the darkness whole. Just a little more. But in that moment of desperation, time shifted. The fabric of reality seemed to tear apart, and with a ripping sound, the shadows began to dissolve, pulling him back with unholy strength, the warm brilliance dimming. The echoes of laughter morphed into pained cries, the sinister whispering echoing in his head. Every choice has a consequence, James, the darkness hissed, cold and laden with dread. What would you sacrifice to keep him? Would his love be enough to break the curse? Or would they both be lost in the abyss forever? James's breath came in ragged gasps as he felt a surge of desperation clawing its way up from his gut. No. I want to yield. His heart pounded relentlessly, an echo of his resolve. He had to break free, to save Ben, and the light shimmered like a beacon, begging him to fight. Ben! He shouted again, voice laced with a resolve that resonated through the trees. I'm coming. Just hold on, buddy. He lunged, muscles coiling tight like a spring ready to explode with whatever remained of his strength. The darkness snarled around him, shadows stretching out like long fingers desperate to grasp him. But he pressed on, driven by the sound of his son's voice, a lifeline tugging at the edges of his fading hope. Each step was a battle, every inch a desperate plea against the inevitable pull of despair. The light fluttered and flickered, but as he drew closer, it pulsed stronger, pushing against the encroaching shadows, illuminating the world around him. The grotesque figures that had haunted him melted away, dissolving into the ground, their laughter replaced with agonized wails that echoed through the trees. Daddy! Ben cried out again, his voice clear and urgent. James felt the very pulse of his son's spirit, and with that connection fueling him, a surge of adrenaline washed over him. It raged through him, no longer a flicker of desperation, but a wildfire blazing against the night. No. The shadows roared, recoiling as if wounded. You must pay a price. James's gaze shot to the darkness swirling behind him, where fanged creatures slithered in and out, teeth glimmering like blades against fading light. Fear seared through him, but love ignited a fiercer flame. I'd give anything for him. You want a sacrifice? He dug deep, pulling forth everything precious within him. Take my grief. Take my fear. With each word, he felt the darkness recoil. It was weak, it struggled as James's voice grew stronger, louder. You want what's precious? You can have it. Just give me my son. He stepped into the light, feeling its warmth envelop him, a comforting embrace that shielded him from the horrors lurking beyond. There, just beyond the shimmer, he could see Ben's silhouette fragile and radiant, pleading for his father to bridge the distance. "Daddy!" Ben shouted one last time, urgency woven through that simple word. It struck James like an arrow, igniting every protective instinct he possessed. "I'm coming. Just hold on." James threw himself forward, the boundaries of darkness snapping back as if afraid, a predator suddenly cornered. A final roar of despair erupted from the shadows as he reached for the light, grasping at its threads like a lifeline. The flicker turned into a blaze, penetrating the dark veil that held his son captive. And in a blinding moment, he felt Ben's small hand clasp against his own, sending a shockwave of warmth pulsing through him. They tumbled into the light together, the darkness dissipating like smoke, howling in agony. And suddenly, the woods stirred, things shifting, returning to a delicate balance. Light enveloped them entirely, banishing the shadows, and time felt frozen, a heartbeat shared between father and son, filled with hope and fear intermingled. "Dad," Ben whispered, tears streaming down his cheeks, the warmth of joy radiating from them both. "I'm here, buddy," James replied, pulling him close, heart pounding in relief and love. "I'll always be here." They stood together, and the woods breathed in silence, the memory of darkness locking itself away beneath the earth, buried under the weight of a father's sacrifice. The woods, now filled with ethereal calm, offered no more threats, only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. As they stepped out of that haunting nightmare, the remnants of shadows fled, the very air lightening with each passing second. James could still feel a twinge of heaviness tugging at the edges, remnants of what had transpired. But together, they were strong. Together, they would heal. "I thought I lost you," Ben murmured, and James nodded, bittersweet emotions washing over him, pain tangled with gratitude. "Not a chance, kiddo. I'd fight the dark 1,000 times over for you." As the first rays of dawn broke through, the town glimmered welcomingly in the distance, the shadows left behind gradually faded, and a peace settled over both of them. They defaced the abyss and emerged into the light, scarred but ready to embrace whatever came next. With the forest finally silent, James stood tall beside Ben, a deep resolve settling over him. He knew now that darkness could never own him, it thrived only on fear. Turning to his son, they walked home, two hearts bound stronger than ever. They wouldn't just survive the specters of this town. They would lead with love, a torch against the dark, moving forward hand in hand, and just behind them, the woods shifted quietly, a reminder that shadows would always linger, but they were also the remains of an ancient lesson learned: love conquers all. If you enjoyed this gripping conclusion, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss a single exclusive story that's coming up next. Smash the like button immediately to help us spread these tales further. We want to hear from you, so flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about the ending. And please, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful journey. This is the moment to show your support.